want to do provincially, and yet the bureaucracy and the legislation has not caught up to the visionary approach that the provincial politicians have set forward. So there's some going backing and forthing on how we get there. So I would suggest that there's been some discussions have now gone on through the subdivision process on Island, and we're hoping to make some inroads and be one of the first to change some of that legislation to make it possible that we can collect rainwater and have it processed and reused.
So just for clarification on that, that's a voluntary process agreed to by the developer of those subdivisions?
That's correct.
Yeah. Do we have any authority to sort of impose that on as a requirement of development?
We cannot impose it because right now the developer couldn't do it if he wants to do it because the provincial legislation is such that it won't allow it. And that's where we're working.
So at a voluntary level, it can be included as long as there's sort of agreement with the landowner. Am I correct in that? Or is that a maybe?
There is an issue with the provincial government and their legislation. If you're doing a small two-house type of development, that's fine. Once you get into a larger subdivision of 4 or 5 lots, then all of a sudden provincial legislation is kicking in, and that is the snag right now that has to be addressed.
But we have been requiring, because it's this whole issue of food trucks, what, the provincial building code, our laws, et cetera, but we have been working with, and all the rezoning applications, and they're different from the subdivision. People have been putting in as part of those conditions of those cisterns, or at least for garden water collection. The other is this whole health and water and safe potable water issue. But we've been requiring rainwater collection as part of rezoning, so at least the facilities are there and the pipe is there.
The second part to that question.
Community center being known to lead specs.
Right.
To speak to that, is that the facility worker, the recommendation to council was that it be a minimum of lead goal, a minimum of lead goal for the construction. That being said, there was also the incentive recommendation that, you know, you can do even more than lead by making it a green building, living building, and, you know, to incorporate it becoming a showcase for that. So that was definitely part of it.
Great. So Paul, and then we'll take some comments, and then I saw James.
It's just a side note, which I think Allison answered about. For instance, in town point, you are required to have the 1,200 gallons of cistern anymore, so.
And that was part of a previous.
That was part of the question of water
Yeah.
and getting mandated to do something.
And that's, Michael, something that you built into.
Well, when council is considered rezoning of properties, which is a benefit to the developer, one of the things that the council can say, well, if you're getting a benefit for rezoning, we want you to do certain things. One of those certain things is that system. So that's how it occurs through the rezoning process. But as Brian said, we can't require if someone has a lot and they want to build a house, you can't require it. But if it was a lot that was in one of the zoned areas, that's a different story.
Great. Paul?
This is just fast. This relates to Peter's question about implementing the work plan, the strategic work plan, and human capital. You mentioned that there's no staff being increased, and that, you know, how do you offset that perhaps by hiring consultants and so on. An important part of human capital is volunteer, because you won't get this infrastructure committee going without volunteer effort. And we have a dozen volunteer organizations that are connected to municipalities like that. So I think that you really have to be careful not. I have to really recognize that without the volunteer effort, none of this goes forward. And that volunteer effort also is a finite thing. You can't expect too much of volunteer committees, and we're expecting an incredible amount so far. So, you know, in terms of assessing what is possible, just as you do what's possible in terms of what municipal staff can do, what you can afford your budget, you also have to look at that volunteer capital and realize that it's an integral, an essential part of it, but it's also finance.
Yeah, I I mean, you make a really good point. I think, Brian, you made the comment when you came to Bowen Island, that you were, I don't know, surprised, amazed at just how much volunteer assistance the municipality gets in its decision-making or development of work or just delivery of services and programs. Is that a fair comment?
Very fair, more than most communities do.
Yeah. So one of the issues we've had in terms of sort of working with the volunteers is our capacity, just like staff, to not overburden them, but also when they give us advice to actually act on it. Sometimes our committees basically do work, and my civic facilities working group is a case in point, where I think there was quite a bit of frustration on the part of the working group, because you completed a piece of work, said, here's the advice we give you, and 6 months passed before there was really an activation of that advice. And so, you know, talented, hardworking community members create a package, complete a report, hand it to council, and we can't get to it for a period of time. And I appreciate that as a real frustration for the civic facilities working group. I think we took a step to rectify that by this council. Meeting with civic facilities working group is one of our top, early priorities, to hear your report again from you. And I think right now what we're doing is trying to move within our current budget on sort of the recommendations you made that would sort of empower that working group or its successor working group, to have some resources, some basic paid fundraising expertise, some paid project management expertise.
Just as an add-in, I think this infrastructure committee is a great idea.
Yeah. Well,
It streamlines it and it condenses it, and it also coordinates it.
yeah. No, I think we're quite excited about it. Guy Roberts gave us a presentation at council 2 meetings ago, or a meeting ago anyways, and he's been sort of a catalyst in terms of proposing the concept. And so we realized, he had sort of imagined a certain frame for doing it that we're sort of trying to figure out how to. But we all agreed that there's a huge talent base in the community, folks that have time, that have professional expertise in engineering or proposal writing or project management or et cetera, that we could bring into some working group that was giving authorities, connected to council effectively, and that would become a big bump in our capacity to deliver these project proposals. We've had.
We have only one comment sheet. Thank you, Barbara. The other comment sheet we had was, while budgets and strategic plans are important, there are other more real residence issues that need addressing. Snow clearing, communication of decisions affecting residents, to those residents, etc. Most importantly is the real issue of the apparent arbitrary decision to reduce speed limits to an unheard of 30 kilometer, 18 miles per hour on at least 10 new areas of Bowen, with no public announcements and no public use.
Okay. So that's a concern. I'm not sort of speaking to anybody in particular here. That authority, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, that authority is part of, to sort of identify sort of appropriate speed limits is given to public works staff to sort of affect.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Through our bylaws.
Is it appropriate that there was no public consultation on that?
It's not good form.
Not good form.
Well said.
I think what precipitated, if I remember correctly, a lot of this was, we had a petition from Miller Road area residents. And I think that's precipitated Public Works putting up some signage.
So just, to sort of expand on that point, the people who live on sort of Seven Hills there came to council with a petition of 30 signatures or so, most of the community, and they were very, very, very anxious about the public safety risks that exist on that hill by people, particularly coming down who are speeding, not doing 40, but way more than 40. And the narrow sort of, the lack of off-road walking space for that, and the concern, the public safety concern. And so, council heard that, and Public Works heard that, and we, I think, directed staff to work with that neighborhood to sort of come up with a solution, which I think they did. It sounds like also they sort of looked at other possible areas where